rescued and my mind and my memory restored. I was totally robotic. I had no ability to think for myself. I had no ability to question or to reason. I could only do exactly what I was told to do. One thing that I was told to do was to attend a White House cocktail party. This was during the Reagan-Bush administration while Ronald Reagan was president. It was on one occasion in particular that I heard Ronald Reagan talking with then Prime Minister of Canada, Brian Mulroney, who was also involved in this New World Order effort. And he said at that time that he believed the only way to world peace is through mind control of the masses. This is terrifying in proportion, especially when, having experienced mind control, I know that there is no peace of mind under mind control. Without free thought, there's no free will. Without God-given free will, there's no spiritual expression. And I wonder, what kind of a so-called world peace can we have where people have no peace of mind, where they have no spiritual expression, when they're not even in touch with their own identity? Or it's very frightening in proportion when we consider the ramifications of what all mind control entails.
President Clinton was campaigning for his wife in Corpus Christi, Texas yesterday when an idiot started waving a sign that claimed 9/11 was an inside job. Shut up.
That's not good screaming.
As Clinton was working the crowd after the speech,
what's Rosie O'Donnell doing in Corpus Christi?
the man got close to the former president and started yelling at him. You don't do that, you see, because that's when the Secret Service steps in. The man led away in handcuffs and hopefully taken one of those secret prisons in Eastern Europe, never to be heard from.
Oh, I hope that happens.
Okay. We can only hope.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier.
The family members at the 9/11 Commission asked hundreds of questions of the 9/11 Commission, questions that I wanted also.
I familiari delle vittime morte negli attentati dell'11 settembre hanno posto centinaia e centinaia di domande alla Commissione, tra cui tante domande che mi sono posto anch'io.
The Commission refused to answer them. Think of your son or daughter being murdered. Everyone think of it.
Voglio chiedervi di fare una cosa molto difficile. Pensate che cosa vuol dire avere il proprio figlio o la propria figlia uccisi.
It's not about racism. It's not about anti-Semitism.
Non c'entra qui il razzismo, non c'entra l'antisemitismo.
I want the truth.
Io voglio la verità.
I've spent every day of my life since 2001
E dal 2001 ogni giorno della mia vita
trying to find out who murdered my son.
On the Pinhead front, we are on the road again with Willie Nelson. The 74-year-old singer counts himself among the 9/11 conspiracy nuts.
What's your take on 9/11? Do you question the official story?
I certainly do, and I saw those towers fall, and I've seen an implosion in Las Vegas. There was too much similarities between the two. And then I saw the building fall that didn't get hit by nothing. So, you know, how naive are we? Or, you know, what do they think we'll go for?
Good grief. Pinhead.
You know, it was sad because they didn't really take a look at any of the stuff I was asking them to look at, any of the evidence or any of the stuff that generated those questions, you know. And they said, oh, he's another tinfoil hat-wearing Hollywood clown. And there's two areas. There's Building 7, and there's the 5 frames from the Pentagon. Don't listen to me. Do your own research.
This is the kind of group that a Timothy McVeigh would come from.
Yeah, that's right. That's what makes it a little bit scary. Google any keywords like intentionally demolished buildings or buildings, demolished, whatever. You'll get hundreds of videos of buildings intentionally brought down. None of them fall like the World Trade Center buildings fell. They all fall from the bottom up, and the World Trade Center buildings fell from the top down. They all fall from the bottom up, and the World Trade Center buildings fell from the top down. Basically, right where the planes hit is where they collapsed initially. So that one's easy to refute. Anybody can refute it. But the fact is, once it gets out on the internet, nobody fact checks. Nobody even looks that up.
And it has been in the hands of men ever since to investigate everything. The events leading up to during, and the events post 9/11. I know on a daily basis the press covers the events post 9/11. But I feel, frankly, abandoned. If I question anything about the official story, I'm called a conspiracy theorist. My daughter was on the 93rd floor.
Being ex-military, when the attack initially took place and I was governor, I went on a very focused tunnel vision mode that our country had been attacked and what the hell do we need to do to repel it. So I today kick myself because at that point in time I had a position of power, and if I would have, not been the way I was, the way all of us were so shocked when it happened, that in that position of power, I could have raised a lot more questions at that time about the things that went down that day, and where today, when I raise those questions, naturally it doesn't quite have the impact that it would have had back then. But to me, it's questions that are not being answered and haven't been answered about 9/11. And, first and foremost, I think, is the fact that, okay, in New York City and Manhattan, 2 planes struck 2 buildings. We'll all be in agreement on that, I think. But how is it that a 3rd building fell 5 hours later? That's my first question. The 9/11 Commission never even brought it up. They didn't devote even 1 page to that in their big volume of investigation.
Anybody who thinks that 9/11 was carried out by the government isn't a truther. They're idiots. Can you actually imagine that our government was capable of successfully pulling off 9/11 and then keeping it off of the front page of the New York Times?
It was omitted. Building 7 9/11 report omitted. The entire thing, never in the history of the world has a building fallen from a fire into its own footprint, eliminating the core, 25 steel beams. Really, impossible, physics-wise, impossible. Hard to say. Hard to say in America.
Personally, I think at this point, if anybody had a rope thick enough, I think that Rosie should be strung up for treason.
You would be surprised at how many people would rather be right about things than lie. And they will set it up so that they can appear to be right, no matter who else they have to kill or destroy. And believe me, there are many, many things worse than death.
The Scholars for 9/11 Truth. These are the worst, most fringe, kookiest, discredited academic crackpots who believe that the Secret Service and the CIA planted a controlled demolition of that building.
Moments ago, I spoke to the chief of safety for the New York City Fire Department. He received word of the possibility of a secondary device, that is another bomb going off, but he said that there was another explosion which took place, and then an hour after the first hit here, there was another explosion that took place. He thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building. We are continuing to hear explosions here downtown.
Explosion and another explosion. We have a report now of a 4th explosion at the Trade Center.
We understand now there has been a secondary explosion on Tower 2.
It's just been a huge explosion.
You want to call your mother or something?
It's supposed to be right now.
I just want to, this is how crazy you guys are. And you guys are really. Number one, you hate your country, and number two, you're a loon.
When a big plane hits a building, the building's going to come tumbling down. Do you think George Bush did it? Do you think Israel did it? I've heard so many sick, twisted conspiracy theories. What's, you know, where are you leaning towards?
I don't know who did it, and neither do you, and we need the American people to get the truth. We have a right to know who did it, and so do the families of the victims.
You know what?
What are you screaming about? Let him talk.
Support a new investigation into the attacks of 9/11.
Are you one of those that was an inside job, guys? I'll let you be rude and interrupt me. Scream at the top of your lungs. "9/11 was not an inside job. It was an Osama bin Laden job with 19 people from Saudi Arabia. They murdered 3,000 Americans and other farmers, including over 200 other Muslims, and we look like idiots, folks, denying that the people who murdered our fellow citizens did it when they are continuing to murder people all around the world. So we heard from you. You go away."